Hi, I'm Vladimir Kamba, kontaktní rodičovství CZ, the Czech Attachment Parenting Portal. It's my pleasure to have Naomi Aldort with me on the call today. Naomi, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Naomi Aldort is the author of the best-selling book, Raising Our Children, Raising Ourselves, which has been published in 17 languages and has transformed the lives of thousands of parents, including mine, and thousands of children. Naomi is an advocate of peaceful and respectful parenting. She provides guidance on all parenting and family issues, babies through teenagers. I have one quote from your book, Naomi, which describes your book the best for me, which is, the book is not about gentle ways of control a child, but about how to have a well-behaved child without having to control. It is about a way of being and of understanding our children so they can do their best, not because they fear us or seek our approval, but because they want to of their own free will.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I just love it. It's still so touching. I have a few questions for you. The first would be, which part of your book do you find to be the most misunderstood by parents? I mean, the part which parents ask you to explain the most often.
Well, I don't know about one part. I'll give you some themes that are mostly easy to confuse for parents. One of them, because parents today are coming from most of them from old-fashioned parenting. Some young people already are getting more liberal and wonderful progressive parents, but most of us are recovering. And because we want to be a lot gentler and kinder to our children than our parents were to us, we confuse being kind with a child being happy all the time. And I think that's one big misunderstanding, that we think that kindness is just letting them do whatever they want, giving them things all the time, or not allowing them to experience real life, including pain, including suffering, that we need training in too. And so we forget that. And part of it is that parents confuse kindness with being not clear. They think if I need to say to my child, absolutely no, you can't have this candy, or we're not crossing the street now. And instead of saying no, we say, well, let's talk about it, or not now, or, all this unclear. I was just with a father here, actually, that happened. The child wouldn't get back into the car until he gets his way. He wanted to get the iPhone. And the father was clear, I'm not giving iPhone to the child now. We are hiking and doing things in nature, riding the car, being together in the car with his family. And the child just stood there. And the parent, the father, out of kindness, seemed almost paralyzed. His wife was the one telling me of this. Like, he was just like, come on, no, I'm not giving it to you. I mean it. And the child doesn't think the father means it because nothing happens. And the mother asked me, what should he have done? This was like 15 minutes, then they were late where they were going. And by then the father was angry and everybody was, misbehaving and upset. And I said, there are situations where you pick up the child and gently but firmly put them in the car. This was a 4 years old. And say, I know, you validate the feeling. I know you want the iPhone and we're not doing the iPhone now. And we have to be somewhere in 5 minutes. So I'm going to buckle you in the car and we're going to go. And they'll cry or not. Usually when the parent is clear, they usually don't cry because they get it. They cry because they think there is hope. So that's one confusion, where we think we're kind by not being clear, but actually it's kinder to be clear, even if the answer is sometimes no. And we try to minimize the no's. Also, I think people are afraid of crying. They think, again, the same line of being happy all the time, especially with babies. Parents just do anything to prevent the baby from crying. That's not a good thing either, because hey, we're human beings. We cry sometimes, and we need to actually feel at peace with crying, not to cause it. You know, some parents then misunderstand and say, okay, I can be rough to my kid and it's all right to cry. No, you be kind. But if the boy scraped his knee, or the girl, her friend, won't play with her, they need to cry about this. You don't want to erase the situation. You mend the wound, but you be with the crying. You say, I see you really wanted to play with your with this friend of yours. Would you like to play with me? You know.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, there's nothing wrong about crying.
Yeah, nothing wrong with crying. And then I would say, and then you got the mainstream. If I go into what the mainstream misunderstand, oh, I can talk forever because I don't know too much about it, except for here and there you get a mainstream person comes to an, you know, in the audience and raise their hand and just blubber all this stuff, or they write on Amazon all the negative reviews, and their misunderstanding is they read maybe only part of the book and they conclude, oh, this woman is crazy. She thinks that the child should have whatever they want.
Right.
And that we should just be servants, and it's not true. And they didn't read the rest of it, or if they read the whole thing, they misinterpret it with their own emotional. I don't blame them for that, because if their emotional place comes from a mainstream control, it looks scary to them and unreal. In fact, the title of one of the one-star reviews on Amazon is Over the Top or Not Possible, something like that. Great idea, but not possible. So that's where there is one big misunderstanding of the whole concept, thinking that being nice and respectful means that the child can cross in red lights and jump into the busy street or hurt somebody or do, you know, anything that isn't respectful to the well-being of themselves and others. And it's not true. So I would say those are the main things.
Main misunderstandings.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more, but there's only so much we can cover. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. How is your parenting and your parenting lesson related to Buddhism?
Well, that's a fun question. I never thought of it as Buddhism. I would say that it fits with all non-dual thinking, awareness. Those of us who are looking for truth inside, like who are we, what are we doing here, which we know nothing about, no matter the science or anything. There is that place of us. And what I teach about it, it's so helpful with parenting, because and that's where my teaching is very Zen, I would say, that reality is the teacher. How should my child behave the way he does? If it's not good, then I need to understand why he has a valid reason for what he does. But I'm learning. So what he does is what he should do. How I know if he should sleep with me or not is ask the child. How I know if he should, you know, hit his brother or not, watch. If he hits his brother, he has a need to hit his brother. Doesn't mean I let it happen. But the Zen part or the Buddhist part is reality is it. Oh, he needs to hit his brother. Now I won't say to him, hey, don't hit your brother. It's not nice. Because, hey, he has a program in his head and his emotion that says something is burning in him that he needs to hit that little brother or sister. And my job as a mother is to understand that so I can help so that he wouldn't need to do it. As the adult, I have to watch reality and respond to reality rather than try to manipulate it and react to it with my emotions. So parental emotions are often what we need to work with to be able to see what's actually happening, to see what she does, to see what the circumstances are. Oh, this circumstance don't work for my daughter. It seems to throw her off, or she has nobody to play with. I've got 3 kids playing, but 2 of them are playing and she's alone. Or I took her to an event and there's a lot of stuff there and she just wants to grab things, or whatever it is, or she's bored. Or so looking at all as truth, as reality, in that sense, it is like not just Buddhism, like I said, but it's learning to be aware and appreciate that reality is everything, is the teacher.
Okay. How do you see the priorities of happy family from the parent point of view when it comes to taking care of myself versus taking care of the mom and dad relationship versus raising children and taking care of them? Do you find these three things to be equally important or not? And would you explain why?
First of all, there is no way for me to tell what is right for another person. Each person and each family is different. And it's not a matter of rules, of right or wrong. So anything you do as a parent, you, anybody, whoever it is listening, that functions well for you and your family, keep it. It's your inner guide. So I always teach to raise children who would trust themselves. Same for the parent. Trust yourself. Do what works for you. So this is your inner guide. But stay open to changes. It may stop functioning the way you want it to function. Mm-hmm. So, and not everybody needs a focus of what order. I never had those kind of parameters. I just did what comes next, whoever comes next. I wasn't thinking consciously that I need to prioritize this or that. Right. But some people need that. So it's important that they do that if that's what they need. Also, caring for self or couple, does it mean doing something for me or for as a couple away from the children? Mm-hmm. For some people, the most nurturing thing is being with the children as a couple. So again, I think the question is about time for oneself, or does it mean taking care of some basic things, making sure you get enough sleep, which I would say, yes, make sure you get enough sleep. But also, if you didn't get enough sleep, then do a headstand, eat some eggs or whatever wakes you up. I eat raw eggs and I'm awake very quickly. And a headstand always helps, or fresh air. And don't use tiredness as an excuse to not be appropriate parent, but don't be short on sleep on a regular basis. So it's really hard to define what it means doing something for yourself. To me and for a lot of people, taking care of the children is taking care of myself. That's the gift I gave to myself. I wanted children. And I have never done anything more fulfilling for myself than caring for my children. That's not true for everybody. Right. So you have to be respectful of yourself and do what's right for yourself. For some parents, in order to take care of the children, they need to do something separately from the kids and rejuvenate. And some of the time, everybody may need that, but it can be a 5 minutes meditation. It can be taking deep breath, saying to the child, let's sit together quietly for just 5 minutes for daddy's sake, for mommy's sake. So whatever is nurturing for yourself. But again, the differences between people is what to respect. So there's no rules. You do what is right for you. And if you find that you have to put a lot into your children, more than you're capable of, definitely seek some advice on or find solutions like hiring a babysitter on the one side and learning to enjoy your children more on the other. So whether you want to work on yourself, that being with the children and nurturing, or you want to simply respect and let you be someone that needs the time for themselves, and then get someone, grandma or friend, or if you can afford to hire some help. Take care of yourself. Definitely.
Take care of yourself and follow your feelings.
Take care of yourself, and having kids, to me, is the most nurturing thing. But like I said, we each have to do our path.
Okay. What would you advise to parents when it comes to the period of defiance? Any do's and don'ts?
Well, first of all, the period of defiance. Not every child goes through defiance, and it really depends on parenting. I would say if a child needs to defy you, then you have defied your child, which is, easy to remember that way. But what I'm saying is you have created obstacle to the self-determination of the child. So you want to remove that. You want to find, if my child defies, there is some valid issue that's going on, that he feels so limited by what I'm doing. So yeah, some things there is no way around, but how we do them can be eliciting defiance or not. And in the workshop, we'll go deeper into how we be with children such that of their own free will, they want what's best and they want to cooperate. But it's also how we flow with them so that they have nothing to defy. Now, teenagers are a whole different subject of this, because I think what we call defiance isn't. And it's a healthy process. What it actually is self-determination in a big way. So the teenager feels like an adult and they want to find who they are. So it's self-realization. Who am I as a community member, not as a son of my parents or a big brother or a little brother of my siblings or a son of or a grandson or all the family relationship, but as me in society, in community, which is why I talk a lot about teenagers and their need to reach out and to find themselves as a member of society. So when they do that, they often find who I am is not my parents, and that's a good discovery, because they may have, and the mistake of parents sometimes is they create too much loyalty to the family. And you get kids coming out of vegan family and they're vegan for the rest of their lives. I get really worried about that. Because if 3 kids come out of the family, all 3 of them grew up vegan and they're all vegan, or they all go to the same church and they still go to the same church, I wonder if they have found themselves, because they are following. So unless they go through some of what some people call defiance, going maybe against their parents, but it's not about the parent. It's about finding themselves, doing something opposite, doing something different, finding what it's like to be a Hindu instead, or to be a meat eater instead, or to be athletic, or to live in the country if they lived in the city, or vice versa, or to be an activist, or to be a liberal when you come from conservative, or vice versa, and to kind of shed away all this input
to
and
be free.
find myself. Yes, to be who I really am. If we do parenting well, not much of this is needed, because the child stay rooted in themselves all through, and they come to adulthood and they have been who they are all along. But if intentionally or unintentionally, and none of us are perfect, some of that got suppressed or painted with our ideas, then it's not defiance, it's a self-discovery, and it's a good thing. And a lot of kids who do self-discovery that looks like bad, like tattoos and hair paint or this or that, they come around, because after they feel, okay, now I'm free to be me, then they relax. We all did that to some degree or another. And then we go like, okay, I'm going to college, I'm getting a degree, I'm just getting my hair back to normal, and I want to be successful. And it's not anymore that finding oneself away from the stream that I grew up in. So that's a healthy thing. In general, I would say if you see your child being defiant, look for what you have restricted too much on the one side, and celebrate your child's self-determination. You have done something good as a parent if a child insists, no, I'm not going to do what you say, I have my own mind. I want them to have their own mind. That's good news.
Okay. How to listen to an extrovert and very active child? Say, I'm trying to explain something to him, and in the meantime, he just runs away. Are all the methods suitable to all types of children in the same way? And what is your opinion, please?
Again, there's no methods. There's only one method, and that is love. And this is where Zen comes in. So, in Zen, what it is, it is. If a child doesn't listen to me, this is not the time to talk. So I'm the one mistaken. I'm talking to someone who is not ready to listen. Or I'm saying something specifically that the child doesn't want to listen to, that defies them.
Mm-hmm.
This is usually an example where the parent defies the child. You should stop what you're doing now and come for dinner. You wouldn't say that to your guest. You would say the dinner is ready. Do you need some more time to finish something that you're doing? How much time do you need? So, when we're respectful, then it's so easy then. And the child would listen when we speak to their need in a respectful way. So if a child runs out and doesn't listen, he's telling you in a childlike way, I don't want to listen to you. So don't speak. This is not the time to speak. They tell you, my middle child, he used to say it already at age 2, and he wasn't talking. He was a late talker, and then he spoke 2 languages. But if you said something that he didn't want to listen, he would go, and I'm not doing it loud enough. As a child, at 2 years old or 1 year old sound, he would screech and go like this, like, don't talk to me, not this. And I respected that. I said, okay, he's telling me I'm out of line. I'm speaking to him in the wrong way, in the wrong time, the wrong thing. And he doesn't want to hear that. And we, at all ages, need to respect other people and find the right time to talk to them, and also select what you're saying. It may be that we say they don't listen because we're telling them something that we shouldn't be telling them. That we're restricting them instead of finding a way to make their life work for them. We're telling them stop that instead of, stop getting into this thing, instead of providing something that allows them this thing in a safe way, whatever it is. So many times that's all that is.
Actually, I like that analogy with the guest that you mentioned. Would you say it's a good idea to always ask myself, would I say this to a guest before I say that to a child?
Yes, absolutely. I use that a lot. Also we patronize children, we praise children, we speak to children in all kinds of very disrespectful ways that we would never do to an adult. You're 10 years old, washes the dishes, and you go, wow, we are washing the dishes, how wonderful, you're so helpful, and look how clean they are. Would you ever do that to your guest who is helping you, or even your partner, wife, husband, whoever is washing the dishes? Would you come? Or they read a book for themselves and you say, wow, you're reading all by yourself, you really know to read. All of these things are very disrespectful. And they put the child constantly on the spot like it was a lab specimen that's being measured all the time, and then they become anxious. Am I good? They didn't say anything. Maybe I'm not good now. I'm not eliciting this constant barrage of evaluations. So we need to be quiet more. So with the question of when the child doesn't listen, well, maybe it's we that don't listen to the nonverbal language of the child, and adjust ourselves to respect the child better. And it's natural. Again, nothing to feel guilty about. We all make these mistakes. So anything I say, if somebody listens and says, oh my God, I'm doing everything wrong, forgive yourself. It's all right. We have all, believe me, I've done lots of things wrong. My children still tell me about my mistakes, which they are, and some of them are giant. So we're not perfect. Children grow up with imperfect human beings, not with angels. And that prepares them for a life with other imperfect human beings. So it's really perfect.
Actually,
so not to feel guilty, but yes, to listen more and to not expect a child to listen to you. And in the workshop, by the way, I often do the work with people, the questioning of the self on my child should listen to me. Is it true that the child should listen to you? And when we delve deeply into that question, we realize that it isn't true. And the child is right to not listen. And when we understand that, that's when we're able to talk in a way that the child can hear or realize that we shouldn't talk.
Actually, in here we've got a saying that peaking is silver and being quiet is gold. And it might actually apply.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's very useful.
How do you think kids deal with such a principal difference in parenting approach of their parents? And can you see any advantages in a situation when mom's got a different approach than dad has?
Well, if they live together, I find it a lot more difficult for the children and the parents, and very confusing. If they live separately, if they're divorced or separated, then children can learn from that.
Mm-hmm.
It's more stable for them if the parents are on the same page. But it's not, when they don't live together, I find that children in general tend to spend more time with more people because each parent needs some babysitting. They have to work or they have to do other things, and they can't just be with the children all day long. So I find a lot of children of divorced people are actually more adjusted to society at a younger age and can be with more people and are more flexible that way. And so when they're at daddy's house, it's this way. At mommy's house, it's this way. Mm-hmm. When it's the same household, my experience is that it's not really advantageous to have parents be on different paths unless they manage to really help the children see, okay, with mommy it's this way, with daddy it's this way, that's it. And the parents don't fight to make it the same, which is hard, because if daddy does this with the children and mommy comes home and heard that he did that, it's just like, no, I don't want them to see this movie, or I don't want them to have this toy. It's very difficult. So the parents often end up in conflict, and parents in conflict is always difficult on the child. Doesn't mean that it harms them. I grew up with parents in conflict all the time and eventually divorced, and just more stuff to recover from, which is a lot of learning. It's all grist for the mill. But it does make it difficult. So if you are living as a family together, I do recommend to study parenting together and to find a way to do things that give the children a feeling, our household is like this. With some variations, obviously. There are two different personalities. So with daddy, we play and we jump and we do things that mommy doesn't do, or that mommy says no, or whatever. That's fine. But the essence, the philosophy of living and being is better if it's closer together.
Spanking is still a legal parenting technique in our country. I hear many people say, my parents spanked me, but I grew up and I'm a good man. So there can't be anything wrong about that, about spanking. It works. So what do you think about this argument, and what would be your message to such a parent?
You know, we can go back to the other question. You know, if you grow up with parents who don't have one philosophy and who are fighting all the time, you grow up and you can say too, look, I'm all right. So it's all right for parents to fight. And, you know, people have been molested and they're all right. They do therapy, they grow up and they're all right. So what's the definition of all right? And how do I know how I would have been, or how much better I would have been if I wasn't raised with the anxiety of being hit? But I want to say it's not just being hit, because mental abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse can be more damaging than spanking. A lot of people say that, you know, they are spanked, but otherwise parents really were loving and kind of easygoing. But if they did the wrong thing, bang, there was spanking, and then it was over, and it wasn't as heavy as the mental abuse that some parents who don't spank produce. So it's really, we're talking about abuse, not just spanking. I don't recommend spanking. I don't recommend punishment, time out, threats, bribes, praise. Any manipulation is not ideal. But none of us are perfect. And everybody can say, I grew up, unless they grew up in absolute hell, which, yeah, there is that too. And then they do need therapy. But most of us can handle human beings. So if I'm a child and I'm spanked some and maybe punished and some verbal abuse, I can grow up and be all right. And the fact that I'm all right does not say that it's all right to spank. You know, I can injure somebody, adult to adult, and they recover and they're all right. It doesn't mean it's all right to injure. And it doesn't mean that it isn't better to grow up without it. So I would like to say it is better to grow up without it. So wonderful that people can recover and be all right. And can we learn even better ways than hurting people in order in our connection with our children? Because hurting people is so painful. Yeah.
I agree.
You know, especially children. You know, here we are adults and we have more power than they do, and we come, the person that takes care of them, that they depend on, comes and hurts them. That's very shuddering. Of the whole survival depends on this beloved daddy or mommy or aunt or whoever takes care of them, and that they would be the danger. You know, I see them, the child sees them as the protection from danger, and all of a sudden they are the danger. It's extremely confusing, creates anxiety, depression at later age, variety. So if people say, and if people have said that to me in workshops, by the way, but I'm turned out all right. And first of all, my definition of all right, they wouldn't pass. It's all right and there is all right. There's a lot more possibilities for the human being that can actualize themselves much better if we don't abuse them or hit them in any way, shape, or form, or punish them. So what we're here for, or in my workshops and my work, is looking for better ways. Will we reach the best? No. We're always searching. But as a society, we always want to improve as human beings. Each one of us want to do better and not inflict the same. And that's it. I'm over talking.
Yeah, thank you. My last question, do you have any encouragement for parents? Any last message? Most important, brief and clear message every parent should hear?
Well, you know, the most encouraging thing is to know that you can't be perfect. And it's a lost cause. Because if you let go of thinking that you can do some perfect parenting, you'll be less anxious and actually a better parent. You know, the image I like to use for this is, can you imagine being pregnant, you or your partner, in this case, your wife, and you worry, oh no, she'll have a brown eyes like me. Let's see while we're pregnant. Can we make the eyes green or the opposite or whatever? Or they're going to have a long nose. Let's try hard. You know? So it's kind of the same thing, because the baby is born and he's not out of the womb. He's now in a bigger womb, the family womb, then expands to the community womb. And this womb is the parents, some the grandparents, some siblings. The immediate family is the next womb, and it has influence. And it's not any different. It's like you can't change the color of their eyes, and you can't change who you are. And who you are, yes, it's going to impact how the child is. That's how it's supposed to be. You know, if you're a rabbit, you don't expect your offspring to be a chicken. So if you're a human with a certain traits and you have your certain characteristics that you brought with your stories from your childhood, yeah, you can work on it. Your goal is to create as much as possible through my work a clear space for the child to show up as themselves, but you can't. So you just go for as good as you can in creating that clearance, and you make peace with, in fact, you fall in love with yourself, so that when you see that part of you showing up in your child, you enjoy it. Say, oh my God, she's just like me. How adorable. So that makes you, that's the kind of advice when it's, you relax and love every moment. It's perfectly the way it is. And all the problems, so parents would say, well, what about the problems we're creating? They're greased for the meal. And it's good that you're learning parenting, so you're trying to minimize the problem. And what I teach a lot is how to heal them as they occur. So they're not just accumulating, and then the teenager has years of all this unspoken anxiety and fear because they've been talked about and resolved along the way, in your own way. Mm-hmm. So whatever, how would I self-realize if I have no drama story from my childhood as a greased for my meal to work on? It's all good, and to not expect perfection, but to learn to be clear, to clear yourself from your own stories, and to allow these new human beings to flourish, and then to love whatever part of the pregnancy, the family womb, they have taken on themselves as well. Good stuff, bad stuff, it's not good and bad, it's just what is.
That was Naomi Aldort. Thank you very much, Naomi, for being with us. I'll be looking forward to your workshop.
Thank you. You're very welcome. It's my pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to see a lot of people that I do know and new people, and we will cover lots of subjects all the way, siblings, education, baby crying, teenagers. So I hope to see a lot of people, to answer a lot of questions, and to do a lot of deep work in the workshops and in the evening talks.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Best of luck, Naomi, and have a nice day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.